Welcome, everyone. My name is Jordan Bain. Good morning from America and good afternoon and evening from London, where Julia is. Again, my name is Jordan, and this podcast is called Unveiling. I'm a Modern Mystery School certified senior guide, international Kabbalah instructor, ritual master, healer, teacher, and more in this lineage. And Julia and I have known each other now for over 10 years, almost 11 years now. First met back when I went to Healers Academy in 2010. And she was actually there and I think assisting or in some capacity around that program. And we got to talking right away and have been friends and colleagues ever since. So Julia is a good friend of mine. We go way back and traveled the world together, been in London, been in Tokyo together, been in Canada together. And her background is actually in contemporary art. She's been head of a department of fine art photography at the university, and she's been an exhibitor on the international stage. She's always been passionate about perceiving, expressing the state of humankind through contemporary art. Her passion for the transformation of humankind led her straight to the Modern Mystery School back in 2004. She's been teaching tools from this lineage ever since, and she's initiated and anchored these teachings in 2 African countries, and also brought this Modern Mystery School work to countries in the Middle East. Currently, she works in London, and she's working both on creative projects and continuing her focus to make these tools of transformation and empowerment with the Mystery School open to all. So Julia, welcome to Unveiling. Welcome to my podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Jordan, thank you so much. And something I didn't tell you is my last solo show was called Lifting the Veil. So that was in 2000, quite a while back, but yes, 2002.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So almost 20 years later, that's called Unveiling, which is
exactly
the veil. So I'd love to, every time you and I have spoken, I was reflecting on you with on this with you before the podcast. I've always come away with the impression of you sharing about transitions and changes in your life. And those have been so many over the years. But when I was thinking about this podcast and you came to mind as a guest, I just felt like that was really the perfect topic to discuss. It seems like a theme or almost like a part of your life journey that's always stood out to me. So I'd love to hear about that today. And, we'll sort of go off the cuff here in a lot of ways. I have a few questions I'd like to ask you, but I don't even think I know a lot of these stories about you, even though I've known you for a decade now. And it's also been over 1.5 years since we've seen each other, which seems so crazy now with COVID. But what did you do? What did you study? What was your life like before you found the Mystery School?
Well, John, actually, we haven't spoken about these things, so it's going to be fun to share today, and especially because we haven't seen each other for 1.5 years. So thank you. Well, what did I do before the Mystery School? Goodness, I think if I go all the way back to school, actually, now don't laugh at me, but I was that kid that was doing maths Olympiads and Latin Olympiads and kind of that, math sort of science kind of kid. And my father actually was a mathematical genius, would you believe? And I decided I got a feeling. I got a feeling in my final year of school while I was writing final exams. I got this burning feeling that I had to change everything I was doing and do fine art. And I actually went to a convent, which is also a really funny story. The nuns were...
You can't just drop that in there and not tell us about it. So I might loop around to that later on. But go ahead with the
let's try and stay away from that. Anyway, but the nuns were highly unimpressed, shall I say. They wanted to put me up on the science kind of, I don't know, the science is always something which has been so valued in our society. And I had this, I can't describe it, but this burning in my heart where I had to choose fine art. Now, I will share something because I know we're going to go there later, I think maybe in this call, but about a year prior to that, I'd lost my father. He died, and it's kind of a tragic story. We only found his body 10 days later.
Wow.
So yeah, I just know that when we finally did get to where he was, I just know that my uncle identified his body and had nightmares for months after that. So that's all that I know. But you know, something changed profoundly in me
Mm.
with that death, and I understand now that it opened something in me. The death is really a gateway to life. It shifted everything in me, and it reoriented, like it opened the door of my true purpose, my calling, my heart. I think it opened the door of
Mm.
my heart, really, where I know that's where we can find what really brings us joy, that passion, that purpose.
Mm.
And things began changing, not making sense the way they used to make sense.
Mhm.
And it actually had started prior to that final moment during my final exams. It had started earlier, and I put it to one side and I said, you know what, if this feeling, it's really annoying, I'll do something about it. So I put it to one side. I signed up for, I think I ended up on a computer science degree. There was low current engineering somewhere in there as well. And while I was writing exams, I had to change to fine art, and there was no. I had never previously focused on fine art. It was one of my subjects at school, but of course the nuns had always wanted me to kind of ignore it and
Mm.
focus on science. And I just threw myself in. I had no preconceived ideas about being a famous artist. I had no preconceived ideas. It was purely from my heart saying, this is the direction you need to go in. And I did that. I just threw myself in at university. It was, you know, people that I was studying with, they had wanted to do this. This was like just a calling. And so I just was like I had an empty cup, Jordan. To be honest, I was an
Mhm.
empty cup. I had no ideas what I was going to do with it, but I just knew I had to do it.
Mhm.
And, you know, I ended up doing, and I was just contemplating it in the last month. I did an exhibition in my final year at university called Beauty and Decay.
Mm.
Oh, and that exhibition, um, I was kind of more of an installation artist. I kind of took massive big photographs and I decayed them and I rephotographed them. And that put me on an international stage very young. So by 21, I was already on the world stage and
Mhm.
headhunted for head of department at a university in South Africa. But again, I had no preconceived ideas about that. What is super interesting to me now is, as I was literally just contemplating in the last month, that this concept of death or beauty and decay is something which is really probably at the very core of my being, you know,
Mhm.
because this time of COVID has been so fascinating. You know, there's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
so much, it really has brought people's awareness of death and dying so to the fore. And at the beginning of COVID last lockdown in March, April 2021, I did a talk on repositioning death and birth and looking at it from different point of view.
Mhm.
You know, what's really amazing about when something dies, it goes back to the soil. It produces fertile conditions for new life. And there is actually something very beautiful about that process. And I took these decaying things and by rephotographing them, I brought them to a state of beauty. And so that kind of put me on a world stage. And then after that, I ended up moving cities actually, and from young. I'd actually prior to that was working for the University of Cape Town, setting up the South African Centre for Photography with in a team, and then I was headhunted for the head of department at a different university, and then I spent time there in that university, and then I kind of returned back to Cape Town, sort of the mother
Mm.
city, you know, beautiful, beautiful city in Africa. It's probably the
Yeah.
most beautiful.
Were you born in Cape Town? I don't even know.
I was
Yeah.
born in Cape Town, but I lived for a couple of years in the bush when I was literally, my parents left behind
Mm.
an exquisite house. Uh, I don't know, 2 lawns and pools, and it was huge. And we went and lived in the bush in a forest with no electricity, no water, 2 tiny wooden cabins, snakes everywhere, Jordan. I mean, there were snakes living underneath my cabin, and poisonous snakes, I might add. And my father in a wheelchair. And we lived like that for 2.5 years, just living from the land, talking to the, you know, went to went from a convent to a very impoverished school, where I actually ended up becoming a teacher. 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, 12, I was, sorry, 9, 10, 11, I was teaching the younger students. I was officially teaching in the school.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of a crazy background. Yes, lots of changes, lots of transitions, lots of letting go of previous ways of being, and just changing it up, you know.
Wow.
So just sorry to finish off there. Once I returned back to Cape Town from lecturing, I've worked in the film industry in Cape Town for 10 years, and very grateful that I was lecturing. I got exposure to mixed media and moving images and video. And then when I went back to Cape Town, I worked in the film industry for 10 years, continued lecturing at other institutions, had exhibitions. That was kind of my background, and worked as a general photographer as well. So kind of many things in one.
Yeah. And within all that, how did you find the mystery school? Like what was that moment or connection point that drew you to seek something like this? Or maybe you just found it. I don't know. I don't know your story with that. Most of the things that we've talked about have been present time things that have in your life. I don't really know these stories about you. So I'm fascinated. But how did you find the school? What brought you?
Well, super interesting, actually. It was my sister, actually. And the reason she looked for the mystery school way back when, she'd been living in the States, goodness, I don't know how long by that point. She was looking for a way to solve our genetic challenges. We had some pretty serious autoimmune predispositions in our family, and she knew that I was headed to I was fast tracking towards lupus and late onset diabetes. I was fast tracking type 1, and she knew it. My body was in a heck of a state, and she'd already got 3 autoimmune diseases. My father's paralysis was from autoimmune a virus, and his family all have something. So she went off to find a way to, because she has a very scientific brain, she's brilliant, absolutely mathematically brilliant. She had looked at all the medical route and said, well, you know what, let's think out the box. I need something. There has to be a solution. Well, and she's very determined. So she went forth and found DNA activations. She tried, Jordan, she tried quite a few sort of new age DNA activations. And then she came across the life activation. Funny enough, it was Verla Wade who even just interviewed, actually. She's who my sister found. And so she tried this out, but she did not tell me. She did not tell me. I had no clue, to be honest. I had absolutely no clue of it. So Sandy went, Sandra, my sister had the activation, and I didn't know about it. I woke up in my bed after having worked an 18-hour day, photographing probably 800 photographs the previous day, absolutely exhausted. And I woke up in my bed, a beautiful sunny morning, and as I opened my eyes, I swear the entire room looked completely different. I mean, I had no idea of this, but I just felt like when I opened my eyes, God, did someone put some new lenses on my eyes? That's pretty much what happened. And I
just from your sister having it halfway around the world.
She's in Seattle, I was in Cape Town. This is a scenario. So I also had this nagging feeling that she'd done something to me, which, I mean, the thing is about my sister, you must understand, going back 20 odd years, that she's very scientific. I had made a radical change from the sciences to the arts, and in that had opened more of my sort of non-scientific perceptions. My sister was very much immersed in the scientific world, logical world. So at the back of my head was a feeling that she had in fact done something to me. It just, it nagged me the whole day, so much so that I phoned her that evening. She's in Seattle, I'm in Cape Town, so about 10 hours difference. And I phoned her and I asked her, hey, how are you doing? And oh, have you done anything unusual lately? And she got super curious, and she pulled out the flyer and began talking about this thing called, this life activation from King Solomon. And I think when she said King Solomon, I put my brain switched off, and I thought, oh my goodness, it's some mumbo jumbo. And I discounted it, totally. I just put it into my recycle bin and forgot about it. And my whole life changed the next year. I mean, things I did not want to see, I saw. Things that were not doing good for me got worse, and then I had to leave it. And the minute I left those things that were not good for me, because suddenly I just had to, things I would never have changed. When I left those things, suddenly I had joy coming into my life. I shifted. Just something really, really magical happened, to be honest. And then I got an email from my sister saying, these were her precise words: I am flying you to Hogwarts in 6 months' time, and you are getting a wand. And that was when I found Healers Academy, and first Empower the Self-Initiation, and within 2 weeks I was in Healers Academy. It was really fast.
Amazing.
It was really fast.
She just gifted you your Hogwarts attendance.
She just said,
Great.
I'm flying you over. You don't need to know anything. You just need to take off 2 months of your life. We're going to hang out, have fun, and you're going to Hogwarts. It didn't take 2 weeks to study in the mystery school, but we had 2 weeks, two months of fun together, and then I spent about 2 weeks in the mystery school training within that. So
amazing.
And
that was back in 2004.
That was back in 2004, and it changed my life 360 degrees, I'll be honest.
What happened after you went to Healers Academy? When you came back to South Africa?
I felt so different. So different. I felt like I was walking on clouds, South Africa has, it has some challenges. It's definitely on the African continent. There are some very uniquely African challenges and a grittiness to the experience there. And yeah, it's a challenged culture. It also produces incredibly creative people because of those challenges, and very dynamic and problem-solving people. But it's fairly, gritty at times, for sure. And I just felt totally like in cloud nine. I felt safe. I felt positive. I felt like, I don't know, it felt like cloud nine, to be honest. And I came back with this wand, which I didn't know what it was before I went to Hogwarts. And it was the life activation wand. And interestingly enough, I'd fought so hard to make a place as an artist, having not known what it meant to be an artist, that I had decided in my head, there's no ways I'm doing activations. I'm not a healer. I was very judgmental about this. But this again, I've learned to follow my feeling from a young age. Through the loss of a parent, I'd learned to find the GPS of my heart. And I felt this compulsion. I must activate my friend. I must activate my cousin. I must activate. I just had to be honest. And so I followed, because I know I must follow. I didn't have any plans. I didn't have any preconceived ideas. I had no idea where it was going. But I just activated a friend. And then that friend said, wow, what have you done to me? Can I send my other friend to you? And that's literally how it started. Honestly. And then my sister, about 2-3 months later, she sent me an email saying she had booked me at the largest holistic fair. She'd booked me a massive table, and that I was going to do that. I said, no, there's no ways I'm doing that. I'm a respectable blah blah blah, lecturer, artist, whatever I said. And but I did it. And within about 1.5 years after starting that, I had another really huge revelation in my heart that I needed to make a break from specifically commercial photographic work. and that was not in my heart anymore. I had to sort of leave the photographic work from the film industry and other photographic commercial work. I was done. I had
Mhm.
to change.
Yeah.
And I was, Jordan, I was good at it. I was the height of my career, genuinely at the height of my career with that work. But I had to. My heart was, you need to do this full time, and I did. And without really any skills to do so, I began anchoring the mystery school in South Africa. Did that for 9.5 years, and that was really my focus. But yeah, now it's time for me to start reintroducing my art back into my life again.
Cycles, which we are going to
Cycles.
talk about. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a great segue into cycles. How have you looked at cycles? Like
Mm.
what's been your approach? What insights have you gained through your journey of all the, I mean, you just gave us a few touch points because there's no way to cover all this stuff in 45 minutes, but
Yeah.
um, what have you learned about cycles? What have you learned about these moments and these changes and these huge, I mean, you talked about making these wild turns, these 360s in
Yeah.
your life. How, tell us about that.
I suppose I've come to realize many things, some things,
Mm.
profound things, through the death process of my mother, funny enough. That happened 2016, 2015, 2016. And it helped me to understand what had really happened in the death process of my father. And in their dying processes, I've kind of learned how to live, because death and life really are two sides of one coin.
Yeah.
You know, the the thing I realized that probably happened to my psyche deep within me when my dad died is, I mean, it wasn't a conscious thing, but now I understand it.
Mm.
It's the acceptance of the cycles of life and completion. I want to tell you a little story, and I'll go back to talk about this. But in studying some African art traditions many moons ago, it was very interesting for me to discover that African art is designed to be used for some key moments, key celebrations, key festivals. Beautiful craftsmanship goes into it. Everything is thrown into it. These are works that have taken to their end, to their greatness. And then once they are used, once they have lived their purpose, they're complete. They're not preserved. They're actually taken back to the forest, and it's done in a ceremony and laid there to decay, to die, to return back to the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's super disturbing is that Westerners looked to these pieces of art and saw the commercial value in it, and took these beautiful things that were meant to return, to be used to find a new form. They took them and they sold them, and they put them into these works of art that are now sitting in museums and galleries and so forth and so on.
Mm.
And in the second dying process of my mom, I really looked to death in a much, I looked death straight in the eye. I've stared death straight in the eye, and it felt like, particularly a 10th month, it was an 18-month sort of progression of her illness, but the last 10 months really is when I faced death in the eye. And, I realized people are really, really scared of death because, I don't know, I can give you some theories about why, but I don't want to go down that road right now. But the truth is that life is about the cycles of life and death. Good things need to come to an end. And when it's their time, we need to let them go and
Mm-hmm.
allow something new to come in. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't let something die, I mean, today I just threw away some rotten vegetables. Super excited. They're going into a compost, and they're going to produce soil for some new plants. And for me, that's an exciting process to allow that to be. And if we can just embrace that, that is our natural, that is our normal, that is good, we can start to live life alive. We can realize, oh, okay, it's time that that relationship needs to change its form.
Right.
So that's pretty much a philosophy that I've been living by. And I tell you something, I've also learned the how expensive it is, and I really do mean expensive, when you don't. The cost of becoming stagnant, becoming dead inside of you, becoming, not passionate, just same old, being safe. It's so not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not what we came here to do. We came here to live life alive, for sure.
Yeah.
Not sure if I answered all that for you, Jordan, but please
I
ask.
mean, I'm not sure how it can all be answered,
Yeah.
but we did come here to live life alive. And I love what you just said, that, this, saying another way, like this work of death and rebirth, and it gets really expensive if we don't do that work.
Yeah.
If we don't do the work of letting go. And I say work of letting go because for most people, it doesn't seem to come as an adult all that naturally. It seems like we've really learned how to attach.
Mm.
We really, really learned how to call attachment love, or we've learned to be inured to it and think that it's just what is, or the habits that we form. And then it really does take work, in my experience. And I say this to students sometimes, when they're like, well, why should I study in the mystery school? Like, what's so, like, I'm already in the mystery school of life. Why would I want to go study in a school that teaches me more about life? Like, I think I've learned as much as I need to learn about life, which is always a sign to me that they don't really want to study in the mystery school, because the mysteries are not about what you've learned. The mysteries are about emptying your cup so you can continuously learn more, continuously progress more. But what I say to those students who ask that question, even though I'm like, okay, you won't really be around very long, because you're not here for the right reasons to let go, is, if it were easy, you would have already done it.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I have done it. And I'm like, okay, great. If you think you have done all the work, then why are you coming and asking for help? Why? The logic even of that is circular, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it gets really costly in our lives to not do that work of letting go, to not put in some kind of energy and time and investment into, well, I'm now gonna choose to let go. It has to be a conscious choice. I mean, we're here to choose. From everything I've seen, we're here to make choices. And many people maybe feel like they don't have choices, and that's a big problem as well. And also where a lot of that fear comes from with death. When death comes around, how many people feel like they have a choice about that? How many people feel empowered in their letting go and their death process?
It's funny. I know you're challenged when you're probably listening to me. There's just so many ways you can go, and just your commentary. There's so many ways I can respond to that. I just will say very briefly that there's just so many choices we do have in how we handle the death process. There are so many. We just need to shift our mind to see it as an opportunity. And I have spent some time writing quite a lot about that, and recording the process I went through with my mom, and then really writing about what the opportunities are with someone actually physically dying. But I want to flip back just to this thing about attachments, and you were saying that it takes work. It takes work to do it, and it does. What I think the mystery school does is it makes the art of letting go of attachments super easy. I feel that it gives you empowerment to be able to return to nothingness, just let go back into a space of nothingness where there is just unlimited potential. And it's the speed with which I feel the tools and the healings and the initiations of the mystery school allow us to just shift into that it's like we just, that's our new normal, is to, okay, I recognize an attachment, right? Okay, what's the most economical way that I can let this go? because it's not worth it. It's not bringing me to a good place in my life, and I need to let it go. And that's that art that I really love about the mystery school. So, for me, I had another one of these callings. I've had a calling for 5 years to move countries. Really, by the way, I do love the African continent very, very deeply. I've hitched into it, my goodness, when I was 19 and I went into Central Africa. And I don't know anyone who would do that today or even think of doing that. I don't think I was thinking either when I did that. Anyway, so loved it deeply, committed my life to whatever I could do to see the mindsets of African people, or people born in Africa, elevate and return to a very empowered state. And yet I had a vision that I had to leave the soils. And finally, in the beginning of January 2020, I knew absolutely it must happen. There was no, okay, it's done. And then to realize, oh my goodness, I'm going to try and move during a pandemic. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of ways I've been doing things that I had to let go of. There's so many new ways of being and new approaches. I had to get out the box, let go of so much stuff that I'd been holding back. But I was thinking about this analogy. I want to just jump to a concept and then go back there. But I was thinking about a surfer, and certainly in Cape Town, it's a huge thing, is surfing culture. And only last night, were the restrictions on beaches lifted, and people were actually able to go back to the beaches during an extremely hot summer. I've been thinking about many surfer people that I know, and surfers, once you've become a surfer, it's a lifetime thing. You never stop surfing. The freedom, the exhilaration, the groundedness, the connectedness to spirit that I see surfers have is next level. And the thing about being able to experience all that is, all this amazing energy, this pure flow in life, this pure adaptability, this ability to move with the flow and the tides, and the waves, is that a surfer only really has one attachment, if that, and that's that leash that they have from their ankle to the surfboard. But they've let go of all attachments. They are just wearing a wetsuit, and there's nothing else to hold them down. And with just one attachment, that being to the surfboard, they're able to go with the flow, adapt, change, move, respond, and come out feeling super alive. And, I think one attachment that surf leash, that whatever that thing is called, reminds me of, is be attached to your calling. Be attached to that feeling inside of you that I must do this thing and I can't explain it. That's an attachment that's worthwhile having. Everything else, everything else that holds you back from doing that, let it go. It's not worth it. It's going to take you away from that absolute joy and that freedom that knows no bounds.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's huge. When we just say I'm going to let go of all attachments, I usually see that not working so well for people.
No.
They let go of everything, and then life is always filled with something. So if you let go of everything, then there's nothing left to guide your ship. There's no way left to navigate anything, and you're rudderless and you get lost. And so the people I know who have let go of everything or renounced the world, in general, are really lost.
Yeah.
And they're not navigating any changes. They're just stuck in the same loop of being lost. So to have some attachment, like you're saying, to your calling or to your path, maybe, that's really essential for sure.
It is
So
essential.
we've only got like 10 minutes here, and I want to talk about fear and like, how do you face fears? What have you seen in your clients come up as fears? And what advice could you give to listeners and viewers about overcoming those fears that are stopping these cycles of death and rebirth, holding people in those habits and those patterns of mind?
Gosh, it's a big question. Let me start with myself. I think, first of all, my approach to fear, because earlier I was talking about the economy of making transitions from one state of being to the other, that I feel that the mystery school really facilitates. So what has been really powerful for me about the mystery school is that economy. I have a challenge I'm able to recognize it, do something about it, shift it, move on. That time is very it's very condensed for me. So when it comes to fear, I think the first thing is being able to look at it in its face, look at it and name it. I actually need to be able to name what's going on. See, fears generally like to lurk in the darkness and just run the show and put us on autopilot, running from one stressed, place to the next. And you don't even realize how many fears are constantly sort of running the show. First of all, I think first of all, I recognize that I am in a state of fear. So there's certain physical body sensations and emotions that come up for me. And then to actually say, what am I scared about? What, look it straight in the eye. And often for me, just that process alone starts the shift, and it starts neutralizing the power it has over me. From recognizing what is it, I will then look at, what am I attached to? What am I really holding on? What am I holding on? Is it how someone thinks about me? Is it, I'm trying to think. The problem with me is that I live such I try to live my day sort of fairly empty. So, I can't think of a fear really running the show. Well, right now so much, but what is it that's really, what is it that I'm attached to? And then kind of like, well, how fast can I let go of this attachment? It's not, is it worth, what are the consequences of holding on to the attachment? Where does it lead me? What fruits does it provide for me?
To stay attached.
I look at its fruits, I look at what is it going, what is that attachment doing to me? And I just look at it and, straight on, and just generally for me, I just go, you're not worth it. And I find that dissolves it for me, to be dead honest. That is my personal approach, and it's fairly speedy. I think the process, though, to recognize what the fear is, that can often be the longest, to be honest. When I recognize what the attachment is, though, I will also say that there is often sometimes forgiveness work that I need to do, and that can take a little bit of time. That might need just a bit of space and time. So when I realize that in order to let go of it, I need to go to a state of forgiveness, then, I give it the time that it needs. But I don't just do nothing. I do the work. And with the tools that we've got in the mystery school, to call on beings that can help us with being able to forgive sometimes the unforgivable,
Yeah.
The thing is that process of forgiveness then releases me from the attachment, brings me freedom, and I've let go of the fear. It's gone, poof, and it's done.
Yeah.
Um,
We can work with the angels and higher selves, and the higher selves being able to see a bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And realize that this little picture I'm holding on to isn't just all that is, and it's not really maybe even as important as I thought it was.
Yeah.
That perspective can be really essential. With these cycles of death and rebirth, what advice would you give to people about just being ready for change? So we're not going to be experiencing less change in 2021. It's not like, wow, 2020 is over and now we're going to be all set. We're going to be experiencing just as much, if not more, change. Change is coming more and more and more to humanity now, and we're still kind of at the beginning. So how can people get ready?
Yeah, I'm going to call it, this is the era of the surfers. We're going to be surfing wild waves for quite some time. I think for me, what makes change easier is I look at, what do I really want in my life? And what really brings spark, what really calls me, what do I really desire? And realizing that if I continue with certain behaviors, patterns, lifestyles, living in a certain space, living in a place, continuing with maybe that job or whatever it might be, where is it going to lead me? What are the fruits of those choices? Because people go to psychics to see into the future. This future is not that unknown or that weird. It's already been laid out based on your previous actions. It's not that unknown. It's mapped. So I've made a series of choices. It's going to lead me there. Do I want to be there? And when I sort of look at, I don't want to be going where the trajectory I've just created. That personally gives me the courage to realize I'm going to have to change. There's nowhere else but forward. I am going to have to change. And that for me is kind of my ethos that I look at. And the truth is that the power, the direction in my life lies in my choices. I just want to mention, I don't know why I'm thinking to mention this, but, if someone, sees something in your life and gives you an idea of, where you're going, like a psychic or something like that, they are seeing it based on your current choices.
Right.
You can change that. You have the power to change that. And it's in our choices. And, it's the little
same
thing.
thing goes for parents and their patterns and things we grew up with. It's like, if we see that and we see, well, I'm going to end up in this dead end job or that, marriage that's miserable or loveless, like, or I'm going to end up with bad health, like my parents, or like something like what you were mentioning, let's change it.
Exactly.
It's a different attitude.
And just on that note of, the last year where it has been the most, we as a planet have never experienced or been asked to change so much in a global way. It still boggles my mind how we've been asked to keep changing and adapting. I want to just, say something and just put in my surfer analogy. I've been obviously thinking about the surfing thing a lot, but I had a conversation with a very amazing person one day who was telling me, he's a kind of a keynote speaker in the world stage, and he was telling me that, after IQ, we had EQ, that was the big rave, and now really it's AQ, adaptability quotient, that the absolute thing we need to thrive in the world is the ability to adapt and to respond to change circumstances and to adapt and to flow. And in order to respond, we have to let go of the way things have been and were. And the thing is that we are on a trajectory of change. This is the world stage we're playing in. It's no longer, oh, I'm scared of change, but maybe I'll do it. It is the perfume of the world right now. How do we avoid that perfume? It's all around us. And this thing keeps on coming at us. And we just keep being asked to change, and we try to go back to being comfortable again, and it keeps saying, no, I'm going to lock you down again. And it's like, adapt, change, transform. We need to embrace it. We don't have we don't really have the luxury of not embracing it anymore.
Right.
It's almost like being stagnant and being in our comfort zone was a super luxurious thing we had for a while. It's not there anymore. We need to embrace this opportunity in front of us, this change.
Absolutely. That's perfect. And we're at the end of our podcast time for today. So I know it goes so fast, but
thank you.
Really appreciate your time. And it's perfect transition that, like, we started and it was daylight and it literally just finished being nighttime out the window a few moments ago. So that's a transition right there.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Julia, for all of your wisdom and your life experiences. And there's so much more. So we should do this again, maybe with a different topic sometime soon.
Totally.
Awesome.
Jordan, it's been more than anything just so great to connect with you. Just so wonderful to spend some time with you. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Love what you're doing.
My pleasure. So lots of love to all of you. We'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.